the advantage of coming in last is actually most of the points that I wanted to touch is actually has already been covered. But I think there are certain things that I would like to stress with regards to some of the things that was mentioned just now, especially with regards to, context matters. I think when An was talking about Bani just now, one of the things that he was saying was actually in terms of context and how this matters with regards to what we're trying to do. So my presentation here is very much straightforward with regards to, a perspective from Malaysia in terms of why foresight matters for policymakers. All right. Before I start, well, it's worth to take note about who we are, where I come from, the people, the main sponsor of my activities, Might. Basically, we're a partnership think tank, jointly funded by both the industry and government, established in 1993 to undertake technology prospecting for Malaysia. Because we were asked to actually prospect for business opportunities through strategic exploitation of technology. That was how we got started in Foresight actually. Now, one of our key role is actually building and driving partnership in technology through consensus building platform. So it is our work actually to get people to participate, to discuss about how to build better futures in terms of how Malaysia would be in the next 20, 30 years. Now, as an organization, as I was saying, we achieve our objective, consensus building. Smart partnership, this is a term that we use a lot in Might between organizations and both in the public and private sector. Now, Duncan ended by talking about collaboration. Well, we have established partnership at both local, regional, and international partnership and alliances with Center of Excellence around the world, because we realize that we can't do it alone. And furthermore, as a country, there's a systemic nature to it with regards to what happens to another country would affect what happens to us. So, in having this foresight thinking, there is a need to do this, and we do a lot of our work through consultation and strategic insight, foresight and future studies, analysis, reporting, visualization, and communication, and as I was saying, a smart partnership. And since our inception, since 1993, we have embarked on a lot of initiatives resulting on numerous sectoral or industrial roadmaps, blueprints, as well as white papers. This includes areas in terms of development, industrial and technology park, technology entrepreneurship, technology priorities and advancement. And those pictures on your right is actually just a snapshot of some of the things we do in terms of aerospace blueprint, shipbuilding, ship repairs. We even have the third cover is actually an innovation review that we did with OECD, biotechnology, industry 4.0. We even do the one that's out of a bit strange was actually the National Anti-Corruption Plan, was actually using Foresight Matters to see what will be the future of corruption and how technology could be used actually to mitigate the risk of corruption that's happening. And I think Anne and Duncan has touched, I think, as well as Susan, talk about methods and approaches. Now from those copper diamonds that you saw just now, there are so many approach and methods actually. But in our case, actually, methods are chosen to signify to cater its adoption to case studies. So you might have this lot of options, but depending on the time horizon, the resources that you have, and whatever resources that you have at your disposal, therefore the selection and combination of methods are made to ensure you have the best outcome as well as participation of the stakeholders. Now, this includes, but not limited to the following. Well, one is actually to negate a relatively high level of cynicism among the stakeholders, because when you are trying to introduce some of these, some of these people will say, okay, so, especially when you're trying to do something new, some people are very much trying to say, okay, we've done this before, so what's new? So you're trying to, negate the high level of cynicism of the stakeholders. Enable change of thinking and mindset. people are used to doing the things that they do, and they said it works so far, so why bring the change? To inculcate and incorporate discipline and subjectivity. Well, this includes receptiveness towards method and systematic approach of foresight. And we also want to ensure engagement of diverse and equal distribution of participants. I can't stress this enough in terms of workshops or things that is done in foresight, actually garbage in, garbage out. So we take great care of making sure who we're having on board in terms of having these dialogues. Then there is a need to sustain and continue interest in foresight exercise by introducing creative and participatory approach. We don't want this to be a one-off session. We want people to keep coming back and be involved and be engaged. And we want to enable the use of multi-tools environment as well, definitely. Now, I've been asked this a lot when I give a talk to participants in conference or such. Now, why it matters? I think Duncan and Suzanne have talked a lot about this. We're talking about organizing a long-term thinking process, guide choices, investment decisions. But in the context of Malaysia, why foresight is important? It brings together the thinking that all of this plan could not sit on its own. It brings together the socio-economic plan, the industrial plan, and the STI plan, the science, technology, and innovation plan. All of this must be tied together to a common vision, aspiration, and themes. So the use of foresight is actually the glue that bound this thinking about the national development in terms of what we're trying to do. And there was a conversation previously when I had with Duncan in the OECD community, Okay, so what's the difference if I don't apply foresight in my thinking or in my planning? So what's the difference? So these are just highlights, 9 of the difference that I like to stress upon those who are involved in government foresight. One, it gives a systemic outlook in terms of looking at trends, issues, and challenges, and why it matters to the domain that you're working on. Because so many times when we're working on a particular domain, that you lose sight of what's happening, changes that actually happens in the other domains that will have an impact into what you're trying to do. So the use of foresight actually brings this systemic outlook, a 360 view, if you might say. Second, what we're thinking is actually it establishes a shared vision, but also shared fears derived from multiple scenarios. Because normally when we're trying to do a plan, a 20-year, a 10-year plan, what we do is actually take the so-called the shared the vision that we want, a future that we want, and that's it. Whereas in my line of work, I would like to say, okay, this is the shared vision, but what about the shared fears? So because we're so much concentrating on building strategies for the future that we want, that sometimes we lose sight of trying to build strategies to negate the possibility of the shared fears from coming through. And then we've talked about this, providing a common direction and vision to work on. But number 4 is actually the use of foresight methods allows discussion of political sensitive matters, because I'm not sure about other countries, but in Malaysia, there are certain taboo subject matters that, we don't speak out there. But the use of foresight tools and methods allow us to actually touch some of these areas without, having to be politically correct in those discussions. 5 is to uncover opportunities and risk which was not previously discussed. 6, I like this. We identify wildcards and weak signals in terms of what is going to happen in the future. Because one of the things that, inbuilt in terms of the planning that MITE does is actually we try to understand what wildcards will come in the future and what weak signals should we watch out for. And then 7, we talk about test existing strategies against multiple scenarios. Not only just the future that we want, but also against the future that we don't want. Then understanding the unintended consequences and its risks. This is another thing that I think the use of foresight shows its true value with regards to trying to understand the unintended consequences of some of these policies that we're trying to do. Because so many times, sometimes the solution that we're trying to give actually creates another set of problems on its own. So what we believe we're doing here is actually introduce, if we do this, what will be the consequences and what will be the unintended consequences as well. And of course, number 9, we're trying to build anticipatory capacity to be better prepared for the future. That is pretty clear. Now, this is not exhaustive and not definitive, but these are, the use of foresight in Asia Pacific is not something new. However, I would like to stress there is a differing structures and models. Again, I would like to come back to context, because it will depend if you are interested to set up your own foresight centers or foresight practice in your own countries. There are so many structures and models because, for example, pre-pandemic, I was approached by the people from Oman, just coming in and to see, how we do it. But again, I was stressing to them, this is how we do it because this applies to our current context and our environment. This is the best way to go about it. Now, in Australia, for example, there's CSIRO Futures, an advisory arm of the Australia Science Agency. In China, the Chinese Academy of Sciences Institute of Science and Development, think tank oriented center for academic research and policy consultation, they used to actually organize a government foresight network in Asia. There was 2 meetings that I was present, and that was convened by Dr. Mu Rongping. But I'm not sure how is that going on now at present. And of course, in Japan, there's NISTEP, National Institute of Science, Technology, Policy of Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, and Science and Technology. And I'm glad my colleagues, I saw some familiar names in the list. My colleagues are from the Center for Futures, future think tank focus on issues that may be blind spot areas pursue open-ended. This is CSF. But in Singapore, for example, they've built capacity enough that there are a lot of other ministries as well that has their own foresight unit, something that we in Malaysia do not have. So in Singapore, there's the CSF as a center agency. Then there's a few foresight unit in ministries as well. In South Korea, there's TEPI, Science Technology Policy Institute. We've never collaborate with them, but there is another agency in Korea which is called KISTEP, and we've done a lot of collaboration in terms of we did a joint Delphi studies with KISTEP in terms of trying to understand what will be the next technology that's coming out that have an impact in businesses, small medium industries in Malaysia, for example. Those are some of the things that we do. Now, foresight in Malaysia, present work and moving forward. So I think taking cue from Duncan, one of the things that we're trying to do now is actually coming up with a new industrial strategy post-COVID. And in this instance, we're looking at 2030. And I think one of the important thing in undertaking foresight work is actually the time horizon. I think you need to actually pinpoint what will be the time horizon, because a 20-year time horizon and a 10-year time horizon matters. And then we're looking at future of consumerism at present. As you can see now, consumer demands, consumerism has changed post-pandemic. So these are the 2 things that we're doing. And for the past 4 years, we've continued to do this. Looking at future of smart cities. How does smart cities change in this context? I saw one of the presentation in the earlier one, condomization of living. They're putting condoms in terms of people moving about and things like that. That is an interesting presentation. We're talking about future of work. We're continuing looking at what will be the future of work post pandemic, future mobility. I keep saying, the days when we can teleport will be the end of all this aerospace or automotive and things like that. I can just teleport where Susan is, and we'll be there straight away. And then definitely we keep continuing to do our technology foresight in terms of trying to understand, how the next technology. But I think my discussion with Anne, yesterday, I think the day before, we were talking about, from my perspective in terms of technology, now we're looking at responsible development and application of technology nowadays, because due to the fact that technology has moved so fast that policies is trying to catch up in terms of trying to understand how this will affect society, government, and governance, for example. So we're looking at that. And as I was saying, we're looking at post-pandemic future. We're engaged with a lot of organizations at present, where we're saying, engage in preparing organization for the new normal, where we're saying the new normal will be depending on the following drivers of change: health, economic, and society. In terms of health, in terms of pandemic containment, whether it's manageable or, economic recovery, or whether it's prompt or sluggish, and in terms of society, whether there's compliance. If I was watching the news, that they're talking about, mask is not a political statement; it's just a health thing, So whether it's compliant or dissension, so these are the things that we're discussing here in Malaysia with regards to how, we want to be in the right quadrant, top right quadrant, whereby it's manageable, compliance, and prompt. We're trying to get that to be done. And this is just out in Malaysia. We have not even posted, mail it to Mongolia yet. Actually, we're working with with WHO and the Ministry of Health Mongolia to come up with so-called. We here in Malaysia, we use playing cards, decks, as actually asking strategic questions when we were conducting workshops. So this is Mongolia Future Decks. So we were developing this, and the sample that I'm putting up here is actually in English, but there's another one that's in Mongolian. So we're facts and figures in terms of putting in steep V as the criteria, and we're asking those questions, those strategic questions, in terms of trying to instigate the thinking about trying to chart the future of Mongolia in terms of future of health in Mongolia. So this is something that we're doing now. I think this should be completed any time within this 1 or 2 weeks. And thank you for listening. I think.